Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Paul Graham Essays, the AI podcast series. I'm your host, Nia.
And I'm Ayush.
So, I got something super exciting for you today. We're diving into one of Paul's most fascinating essays about the origin story of Reddit. You know, that platform we all probably spend way too much time on.
Oh my god, yes. And this is seriously such an incredible story. I mean, we're talking about the early days of Y Combinator and how Reddit actually wasn't even supposed to be Reddit.
Wait, what? Okay, you've got to tell me more about that. Like, how did it all start?
So, right, the whole thing began at Harvard, where Paul was giving this talk about startups at the Harvard Computer Society. And these two guys, Steve and Alexis, they actually took a train all the way from University of Virginia just to hear him speak.
That's actually pretty dedicated.
Exactly. And get this, their original idea wasn't even Reddit at all. They wanted to create like this system where you could order fast food from your cell phone.
In 2005, that seems
Way ahead of its time, right? Like we're talking pre-smartphone era. They would have needed deals with cell carriers, fast food chains, just everything. Paul actually mentions that even 19 years later, that exact thing still doesn't really exist.
so. What made Paul interested in them?
Oh man, it's actually super interesting. So, like Paul and Jessica, his wife, were so impressed by their personalities that they actually gave them this adorable nickname, Cell Food Muffins. Apparently, Jessica uses muffin as this term of endearment for cute things like small dogs and toddlers,
That's weirdly adorable.
right? And here's where it gets really interesting. They initially rejected Steve and Alexis's application to Y Combinator because, well, the idea wasn't great. But then Paul had this moment of clarity.
Really? What happened?
So there was this website called Delicious back then, and it had this feature called del.ico.us dash popular, where people were basically using it like Reddit before Reddit existed. And Paul was like, hey, what if we made something specifically for sharing links instead of just saving them? Saving
Oh wow, so he actually suggested the idea that became Reddit?
exactly. And get this, when Paul called them with this new proposal, they were literally on the train back to Virginia. They just they just got off at the next station, turned right around and came back.
Now that's commitment.
Oh, and fun fact, they actually wanted to call it Snow originally, like what's new. But
Wait, is that where the Reddit alien mascot?
yes, yes, that's exactly where Snoo came from. They couldn't get the domain name, so they just named the mascot Snoo instead.
Can we talk about the team? Like, who else was involved in the early days?
So they brought on two more people from their Y Combinator batch, Chris Slow, who was finishing his physics PhD at Harvard, and Aaron Swartz, who was, well, he was this brilliant college freshman who Paul describes as being even more anti authority than Steve.
I feel like there's more to that story.
Yeah, Paul actually refers to Aaron as a martyr for what authority later did to him. It's it's actually a pretty heavy topic that maybe we should cover in another episode.
So, how did Reddit actually grow in those early days?
That's another fascinating part. Like they launched super fast. We're talking about 3 weeks into Y Combinator. And at first, it was literally just Steve, Alexis, Paul, and some friends. But here's the clever part, they used multiple accounts per user to make the site look more active.
That's actually pretty smart.
And you know what's really incredible? Reddit just kept growing like no matter what happened to the company. Even during what Paul calls this period of benign neglect to spectacular blunders, the site just wouldn't die.
That's pretty remarkable.
It totally is. And when Steve came back in 2015, it was like this whole new chapter began. Paul actually says Steve's still not out of ideas, which is pretty exciting to think about.
Well, this has been absolutely fascinating. Thank you all for listening to another episode of Paul Graham Essays, the AI podcast series. I'm Nia.
And I am Ayush. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time for more amazing stories from the world of tech and startups.